Teachers of Reddit, what is the worst excuse for late homework you have ever heard? I taught at really rural school, but this was too much. I had a student who said that his goat ate his notebook and his homework. Seemed like a reasonable thing to happen, as goats will eat anything. His mom was a teacher at the middle school, who came over all the time. I talked to her and she just busted out laughing, saying they didn't have a goat and that was the best excuse he has ever come up with. If I ever have children, I am going to get a goat, so if it ever eats my children's homework, and the teacher calls us in to explain the obviously crazy lie my child told, my wife can then slam her fist on the table and say I knew getting that goat was a bad idea. I used to teach in a school for the super rich. Many kids came to school in $100,000 plus cars or SUVs. Also, it was in SE Asia. A few years ago we were having a huge problem with a kid showing up late for school. Not really late, but 5 or 6 minutes late enough that he was getting detentions every day, which turned into suspensions and the like. So one day I confront him when everyone else leaves and he acts like he's deciding to come clean. "Mr. Trekkie," he says, "it's really my dad's fault. I'm always late because he won't let us take the Ferrari anymore to school. Our new Range Rover is so much slower and that's why I'm always late." Then I ask him how his Ferrari was transporting him, his sister and neighbor, and who was driving. He told me his driver was driving. Then I asked him how 4 people could fit in a Ferrari, because the Ferrari he said he owned was a 2-seater. He stared down at the ground and said, "I just don't get up on time." Seems hard to believe the limiting factor would be the vehicle's top speed rather than the legal speed limit. She couldn't do her homework because she was at her brother's football practice. While waiting, it became apparent that the coach was a no-show. What to do? She graciously stepped in and coached the team, leaving no available time to complete her 7 times table worksheet. I don't know if this is the worst or best. My students had a few week-long project at the end of which they had to give a presentation. One of my students didn't show up for class and missed giving his presentation. He attended the following class and at the end of class came up to me to talk and gave the following explanation while red-faced and staring at the ground. He and his girlfriend were getting ready for class at his apartment and they were feeling a little frisky while showering. They proceeded to do the deed in the bathroom, and while they were going at it against the bathroom door, the door handle broke off. They couldn't get out of the bathroom and he eventually had to wrap a towel around himself and climb out of the 2nd-story window, get down to the ground, go back into his building, enter his apartment, and break down the bathroom door from the outside. He apologized profusely and was quite embarrassed. I never had to try so hard not to laugh in my life. I let him give his presentation the following class. Surprisingly, I haven't had any crazy excuses yet. Most kids just say, "Don't have it," or "Didn't do it" nonchalantly. Ugh, the apathy. But there is one time when I lost their assignments and had to explain. I was grading 1-page writing assignments over spring break. I had gone somewhere a few hours away. Honestly, I don't even remember where. I think it was some sort of beach. On the way home, the windows of my car were open, and a folder with their papers was on the back seat. Needless to say, the folder opened and quite a few papers just flew out the window and into God knows where. For any of the grades I didn't remember. I just met with the students so they could remind me what they wrote. It wasn't a big grade, so it wasn't a huge deal, but it was pretty funny. Hey, at least you know where it went. I've been confronted about my paper ages after turning it in. Turns out they've always misplaced it on their desk or in a weird other pile of paperwork. I was a grade A student. Of course I gave you that paper. Swear to God. Macroeconomics teaching assistant here. My students have to deliver weekly problem sets. One of the worst excuses ever. I, though Max, other student, was going to make and deliver mine. The problem sets are individual. The stupidest comeback. Can't I just photocopy the next one and deliver it twice? The funniest. My mom said I needed to party more, so I went to the club. The club part is true. I saw him there. I told him that excuse was not good enough. 3 weeks later found him in the same club. He approaches me and says he brought the problem set. 10 minutes later he is in a table doing that week's problem set. I genuinely believe his mom. He needs to get out more if he's doing econ HW at a club. Kid walks into my class and hands me his cell phone. It's his mom explaining that he could not hand in or email me his paper because the police confiscated his laptop and he would not be getting it back. Worst and saddest, there was a shooting at my trailer park last night. Bet it was Cyrus the Dong. My computer has a virus, so that's why I turned in John's final. It must have switched my name with his. All the renamed files, those are always popular. Hint, students, if your instructor is in a tech-related department, maybe don't try claiming your file is corrupt to buy yourself more time. Renaming a .mp3 to a .docs isn't going to cut it. I had an IT professor who couldn't open PDFs. He thought it was the corrupted file trick. I had a basketball game after school, and when I got home my parents made me cut the grass until midnight. Then, my sister got sick and we had to take her to the ER. My friend couldn't finish his assignment because he dropped his geography book and the wind blew it away. The teacher said, "So you're telling me you dropped a 7-pound book and the wind was blowing so hard it blew it away?" I don't remember what else was said because I was laughing hysterically. I feel like this would be that much funnier if it was a physics book instead. One of my first graders was a bit of a liar, just like her mom. Every time they were running late, there was a wreck or a flat tire or they ran out of gas. One day she said she didn't have her homework, a simple paper where they looked for shapes around their homes. She said her pet ferret took it out of her bag, dug a hole in the wall, carried it to the basement, put it in the washing machine, stole the keys to her mom's car, and ran away. So that's why she was late and had no homework. I asked her sister about it. She said they didn't have a ferret or a basement. That's one talented imaginary ferret. My dad is a teacher. His favorite note from a parent was Kevin couldn't do his homework last night as he was out late feeding the owls. I gave my class of college music majors, organ, an assignment to visit 4 churches in the city of their choice and write up a report on the pipe organ found in each. That is, number of stops, ranks, year built, maker, tonal qualities, etc. And, of course, to play them. They were given a list of possibilities to choose from, along with contact information to make arrangements in advance to play the organ. One girl came back empty-handed by the deadline, saying that going to other people's churches was against her religion. When I replied, "Well, why didn't you visit your own church?" then her excuse was, "Well, I don't go to church anymore." The rest of the students loved the experience and asked to repeat it the following year. Also, why would she wait until after the deadline to talk to you about this issue? My former English teacher used to keep his favorite excuse note and use it as a demonstration of poor letter writing. It was on a torn piece of paper, written by the child's parents in blue ink. Peter's the Shoots. HAA. My mum used to be a teacher and she liked telling us about a note she got from a particularly fragrant child's parents after she sent him home with a note to get clean clothes and a wash. Our Johnny ain't a rose, so don't smell I am, learn I am. According to Mrs. Christensen, having your house burned down on Christmas Day isn't a valid excuse to not turn in your Beowulf paper. The only solution is seeing if a house burning down is a good enough excuse. My mum forgot to put it in my bag. From a grade 11 boy. A kid in my grade 12 class said he couldn't work on his marketing project over the weekend cause he had just started Breaking Bad and it was really good. Teacher just started laughing and didn't even bother arguing. At my first gig, I was teaching a computer literacy class with 6th 8th graders. The 7th graders outnumbered the rest. Nearly every day the students would try to get me off topic by talking about MySpace and determining how they could find my MySpace account. They didn't believe that I never made one for myself. Anyway, one day after everyone got into a pee contest over who had the most friends, I gave them a homework assignment. It seemed that the people with the most friends on MySpace had no access to a computer to complete the assignment. I was fairly annoyed with a lot of them. Not a teacher, but I once took a screenshot of that computer screensaver where blocks of your screen move around the screen and printed out a picture of it with my half-written report scattered across the screen. I said my computer had a virus. I'm not sure if they really believed it, but I did get an extension. My house caught on fire a couple weeks ago and we had to go through all of this crap, and so I asked my teacher for an extension on a paper. She said that my house burning down was the second best excuse she had ever heard. I asked her what the best one was. Dude crashed his hot air balloon and broke his back. Yeah, I'll take second place to that. I worked in a state where they do a lottery, so the kids that went to our school didn't necessarily live right around the corner. Some of them were there because they had been kicked out of all the other closer schools and now had to come to ours. Yeah, I worked in a winner. One girl was habitually late to my class. Every single day. I collect homework at the beginning of the class to make sure that they don't, do their homework when they are supposed to be doing other things. This day she shows up late. Again. She was on contract that said that if she was late, she'd be spending her Saturday in Saturday school. She blazes into the classroom about 15 minutes after the bell, freaking out. There is a dead homeless guy in my car. That's why I wasn't on time to turn in my homework. I, of course, really hoped she didn't have a dead homeless man in her car, so we took a class field trip out to her car. Yep, dead guy. She drove 20 minutes to school with him. I let her turn in her homework. Kind of relevant, a guy in my unit was late to come back to base in the army. He told the commander he was hitchhiking and a woman picked him up, made the move on him, and they went to her apartment. The commander thought it was so funny he let the guy get away with it. Sophomore year of high school, I had to turn in my report on sharks a day late because I was in jail. The teacher just paused for a few beats and said, "I don't even want to know why this is really late if that's the excuse you're using." I teach college writing. A student emailed me to tell me her hairdresser was about to go out of town. So, of course, student had to get her hair cut during my class, the day her paper was due, because her hair was a hot mess and she only trusted it with Sheila. I teach college writing, because her was a hot mess and she only trusted it with Sheila. I think you might be Sheila. I'm an EFL teacher. Teenage student didn't do the vocabulary consolidation homework. The vocabulary had been extensively worked on for 3 classes prior. His excuse? I didn't know what any of these words meant. I replied, if only there were some kind of electronic system where you could search things. What do you call it? Fuggle? Boogle? I assigned some homework for the class and told them it was due on Wednesday. I emailed a reminder because this was kind of an important assignment. All but one submits it. I ask him about it and he says that he doesn't need to turn it in because his scholarship is taking care of it. I don't even know where an idea like that would even come from. Most choose the money scholarships. A select few choose the super secret homework completing scholarship. He wanted to turn in his assignments after his final and we would no longer be meeting as a class. I said, well, I need it before the summer starts because I am leaving on a trip the day after and will have all my grades turned in before I go. The next August, I am in a before school starts meeting. He comes walking in, it was an open cafeteria area, doesn't let the speaker pause and says, here you go. I was confused partly because I couldn't remember who he was, partly because I was focused on the speaker, and partly because I was embarrassed for interrupting the meeting. I asked what the stack of papers was. He said, the work you wanted. I flashed on the previous June's conversation and asked, you mean the work I wanted before the summer started? He replied, oh, I thought you wanted it before the summer ended. We just looked at each other for a while. Some giggles rippled around the tables near me. I took the papers. He gave a big, double-browed eye roll like I'm slow and don't get it. I guess it wasn't an excuse given, just a lack of communication. I graded the assignments. He attempted 3 of the 10. He finished 2 of the 3. About half his answers were incorrect. It raised his grade from a 48% to a 50%. Still an F. The end is the best part. Loved it. And kudos to him for tracking you down. A student confiding in me about why they hadn't turned in their coursework for another lecturer at university. I've not been to his lectures for 13 weeks, so it'll be embarrassing if I go back now. I might just defer and do that module again next year. He'd already been held back twice. This should not have been his mind. Yee, the world's going to eat you alive, John. Not a teacher, but when I attended private school for a year there was a kid who would be signed out of class early to go deer hunting. He'd end up missing the homework being assigned but counted present. Eventually deer season ended and he had to do his homework for once. The first assignment he's had to do was maybe 3 math worksheets, front and back, say 60 math problems, all easy and multiple choice. The next day he turns in 1 sheet, just the front done, and says that was all he could do because he was constipated all night. The teacher said, I've heard some bad excuses, but at least you're telling me now that you're full of it. When I asked him later about it, he confused diarrhea with constipated and thought it was a good excuse. I'm not a teacher, but an assistant teacher at a primary school. We've had all sorts of excuses. All your common not brought it today or lost it. I'll just confirm that in my 5-year career not one kid has said their dog ate their homework. It's far too generic now. I think the funniest excuse I've heard is a pupil say my mum told me I couldn't do my homework. I mean really, come in. Had a kid tell me he was working on his lawnmower all weekend. It was winter. Yeah, of course he worked on it during winter. That's when you don't have to be using it all the time. Source: cut lawns for money through middle and high school. Me, why didn't you do your homework? Student: I forgot. Me: did you write it down? Student: no, I downloaded it in my brain. Not a teacher, but my friend was from a poor rural area and he handed in a stack of half-burned homework after the holidays. My house blacked out and I accidentally knocked over the candle. This made far more sense once I realized that it read house and not horse. Not a teacher, but my slow friend was giving a presentation in biology class. He gets up, and the teacher says now Nate Dog 435 will give a presentation on endosomes. ND turns white and spouts out, I thought IT was about ribosomes. He sits down and a week later we get a crappy presentation about endosomes. Your friend must have had a lot of trouble in school with a name like Nate Dog 435. I know that many of these are silly or creative, but this one is the most infuriating for me as a teacher. Teaching physics, I often got seniors who thought it would just be a goof-off class. So the most common excuse I would get was I'm already accepted into college or my parents already paid for me to go to university, then get the heck out of my class to make room for those who give a crap, you spoiled little shoots. Granted, this only happened when I was working in the rich towns, and never once did an inner city student use either of these excuses. I feel like come May of senior year that is exactly how most college-bound students feel. Not that they will actively be buttholes, just that a lot are burned out. Oh, I got this. It was a notebook check, due quarterly. I cannot accept late notebooks due to the fact that would entail missing the grading deadline. I say this almost daily. Student doesn't turn in a notebook. I ask why not. I was in the hospital for my family member. Oh wow. I am so sorry. Can you bring a note from the doctor please? This student was known to lie and usually slept through class. The doctor is dead. A friend of mine who's a teacher had a student that was notorious for not completing and turning in his assignments. A parent-teacher conference was scheduled and seemed to do the trick. He was completing his homework and turning it in on time. A couple of months later he comes into class unprepared. My friend asked for his homework and he didn't have it because the FBI took it away. The reason was true. His father had been taken into custody and a warrant was served. The student's homework was taken as possible evidence. Not a teacher, but I had an issue with an English paper once. We had to choose an author and get the choice approved by our teacher, and then use books from the school library, and only the school library, to write a report on them. I had chosen Douglas Adams' of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I had previously borrowed the books and knew we had 3 of them. Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, and Mostly Harmless. We had 6 weeks for the project. Second day I go to the library to check the books out, and they are already checked out. All of them. I wait a few days and go back. Still checked out. I ask the librarian. They had been checked out weeks ago and never brought back. I go and talk to my teacher, asking I can change the author I picked. He wouldn't let me. I explained the books that the library was supposed to have had been checked out weeks ago and were overdue according to the librarian. His response was that I should have thought of that before picking that author. WTF. I ended up failing English that year. The report was something like 60% of our grade overall, and this is after my parents came in and had several discussions with the principal about this. I ended up acing English in summer school though. That guy was a mega douche. One of my students found an app for his tablet that made it look like the screen was cracked and sent me a picture of it that he took with his cell phone. The problem was that I easily found the same app, and the cracks on the screen were identical to his picture. Nice try, knucklehead. Student in my fiance's school didn't do his homework because he was feeding his uncle's cats from dusk till dawn. No one knows what this meant, but he is a special child. Online class. Student didn't log in to the course for the first 2 weeks of a 6-week class. She emails to say sorry, she's been busy planning her wedding and can she turn in work late. Also, her wedding is that weekend and she's going on her honeymoon after. So of course, she can't do the work then. So can she just do the work when she gets back? I laughed and emailed back a no. I was getting married that summer too, yet I managed to plan, grade, and respond to student emails at the same time as get married. Second best. Student emailed after the due date to ask for an extension. She and her boyfriend got in a fight and took off with her spare keys. She had locked her own keys in her car and her laptop was in the car. She couldn't email me sooner because she had lost her phone. No explanation for why she couldn't just use another computer. Third best. Student turned in work late and then emailed me a 3-4 page explanation for why it was late. The condensed version was that he had taken caffeine pills to stay up all night to complete the paper but then had fallen asleep in the library in the middle of the night, and when he woke up he kinda started hallucinating about whether or not the paper was finished. For that last one I had that happen to me. I had like a bunch of caffeine pills and monsters. I passed out and when I woke up I saw finished paper. So I print it out and my prof asks me why my paper cuts off mid-sentence. When I look at the paper I start reading what I am seeing but it isn't on the paper. I had a 10th grade student who was supposed to turn in a persuasive essay. Tell me I'll turn it in whenever. In college they let you turn stuff in whenever you want. There's no deadlines. It's dumb that we have deadlines. We had a lengthy discussion about which one of us had actually gone to college. And then his mother, who worked at a college, had a lengthy talk with him about how college really works. I was sad for the world knowing these same students were learning how to drive. Tay in engineering here, talking about college freshmen in electrical engineering, supposedly the brightest of the bright, in regards to why he didn't follow the provided lab report template format for the first 7 of 8 labs for the semester. It looked hard. In regards to why he finally followed the required format for the final lab report, after being docked a letter grade for not doing so the other 7 times. Turns out, it wasn't hard. Following directions was kind of the whole point. A 10th grade student in my honors English class was upset that my late policy automatic 50% off the assignment total applied to him. He threw up his hands in disgust and said, "But I went somewhere it was the worst excuse," because he thought it was a legitimate reason. Collecting homework in a private school in Menlo Park, blocks away from Facebook offices, when I approached an empty-handed student. Me. "And where is your homework?" Student. "Well, we just got a new maid. She doesn't know where to put my things yet, so a lot of stuff has been ending up in drawers and cabinets and stuff." Me. "Did you ask her where she moved your homework?" Student. "I don't really talk to her." If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.